Hi friends! Recently I posted on YouTube and on Instagram if you have any questions for me while I live in Japan and go to language school and stuff. And you had quite a lot. So today I'm gonna answer all your questions, and a lot of people asked multiple questions in one comment, and I kind of dissected them and tried to group them like similar questions together. So if I don't answer all of your questions at the start of the video, I might answer them later. So please be patient. The first topic is moving to Japan, and Sunmi00 asked, why did you go to Japan? So I was here in 2019 for the first time as a tourist, and I liked it so much I wanted to come back for a longer period of time. Ideally, I wanted to come back for a whole year, but it's not possible with my job, and also financially it's a bit hard. First, I just said, okay, I will stay 6 months, but I will tell you a little secret. I now stay 9 months. I guess I will talk more about it in a later video, probably. And I really love the culture, I love the people. I mean, it changed a little bit. I don't love all of the people anymore, but yeah, we will talk later about it. How was it when you arrived in Japan? The first 2 days, I was asking myself, why the f am I doing this to myself? I was so overwhelmed being in a different country, alone. I think it was the first time I've been completely alone from the start in a foreign country, even though I've been here before, but only for a short time as a tourist. And yeah, I was very overwhelmed because as a tourist, I never went to look for a Wi-Fi router or grocery shopping. So I had to look for a lot of information online on how to survive basically here as a normal human being in a normal part of society, kind of. So this was very stressful. And then I also encountered my first cockroach, and luckily until now, the last cockroach in my room. And this gave me the rest, and I was just like, oh, I want to go home. But then after 3-4 days, like the first day of language school, I think, things were better, and I was slowly getting like integrated into the life here, and I slowly started to really like being here. Are you shocked by the culture? Since I've been here already, not really, but to be honest, some things I didn't really expect. I mean, I know Japan has a lot of rules, and I know some of them do not make the most sense, but they don't even stick to them. And I'm just like, when you make rules, and even if they're stupid, just try to stick to them. I mean, that's the point of making rules. And I guess as a German, I'm used to sticking to rules, but it really annoys me, especially when it comes to the traffic. In Germany, when you want to turn on the next corner, you're not allowed to flash the light for turning around the next corner way in advance. And here, the people just flash their light, even though they are still like 3 intersections away from where they want to go. And as a person on the sidewalk, I'm just like, do you want to go there or there or there? And I always stop. And also the bicycles are the worst. I mean, I heard it before, but I didn't know it was so bad, because last time I spent most of my time in Tokyo and Kyoto, and there weren't a lot of bicycles because there are too many people to ride your bike, I guess, in the more touristy areas. But I really hate bicyclists here. I mean, I ride a bike myself, but they just have no mercy. So if ever something will happen to me, it's because of a bike, probably. How much did it cost you to move from Germany to Japan, and how did you get a house? So there were a lot of costs involved. So first, the plane ticket from Berlin to Haneda Airport was 1,100 euros. It was so expensive. Also, the taxi from the airport was, I think, around 60 euros. The new suitcase I got, because I needed 2 and I only had 1, that was good enough. And also some things like packing cubes. They were all in total around 120 euros. And then I had to pay a one-time contract fee for my share house, and it was around 300 euros. Then the first rent, which was around 450 euros. And the school fee for 6 months, which was around 3,200, 3,500 euros, depending on the exchange rate. So I'm not quite sure what I paid back then, because I feel like the yen was a bit stronger when I paid the school fees. But around that, and in total it was 5,230 euros. So a lot of money. And of course, it doesn't even cover the rent for all 6 months. And I'm also paying my rent in Germany at the same time. And by the way, if you want to see how I saved money, I will link you some videos at the top where I documented 1 or 2 months of me saving for moving to Japan. And how I got the house was, I just looked on the Gogo Nihon website for share house companies. And then I researched quite a lot on the internet about the companies and what people said in forums and stuff. and I basically picked the one that spoke the most to me. And then I made an account on the website, put in an application for an online viewing, and then I had the viewing and I paid the contract fee, the first rent. I signed the contract when I came here to Japan. So it was actually easier than I expected it. And if you want to know more about it, I also talked about it in my application video, and I will also link that in the description box. Then Cat1148 asked, why did you choose Yokohama? And I guess the question could be extended to why not Tokyo? Because a lot of people go to Tokyo, obviously, and most people I know are in Tokyo. And first I also wanted to go to Tokyo, but then I decided because of the school first that I wanted to go to Yokohama. And then when I looked up the costs from Yokohama compared to Tokyo, I will also link the site. I looked them up below because they compare everything. They compare restaurant prices, rent, foods individually, like eggs, bread, milk. They compare everything. And I just saw that life in Yokohama is not a lot cheaper, but I mean, compared to Tokyo, it's cheaper. And also I expected there to be a lot less tourists. And at least in my area and where I always frequent, there are not a lot of tourists, barely any. So I'm very happy about that. And when I go to Tokyo now, I definitely see the over-tourism, and I hate it with all of my heart, and I try to not go to Tokyo if I don't have to. Sometimes I will meet people there to just put in effort and meet them where they live, but yeah, I would rather not go to Tokyo at the moment. I mean, it probably will be better, hopefully, in winter, like after the Momiji season is over. And something I of course didn't know before, but that I realized now, people in Yokohama actually speak Japanese to you and not English. Because also when I was in Tokyo, every single person almost spoke English to me in the convenience store, and I don't want to speak English. Like, I mean, I speak a lot of English with my friends here, and I improved speaking English a lot when it comes to conversational English, which I'm very happy about. But still, if I'm at the convenience store, I want to speak Japanese, please. So I'm very happy about the opportunity to speak Japanese in Yokohama. And also the cashiers are a lot nicer. Almost every cashier I encountered in Tokyo until now was very, not rude, but they didn't smile. They just like throw my money at me, kind of. And I'm just like, okay, I tried my best to be nice to you. Can you please just try to be nice to me as well? So I enjoy living here a lot more than I would in Tokyo, I think. And also in my share house, they're mainly Japanese people. And a lot of share houses I looked at in Tokyo, they had a lot of foreigners. And again, I want to speak Japanese, even though I don't really speak to my housemates. So that's another thing, but at least I have the opportunity and a lot of people here to speak if I want to and if they want to. Life in Japan versus life in Germany is the next topic. Test user 8173 asked, how's the weather there? So in Japan, actually it's warmer than I expected, and it still feels like October, even though it's the middle of December almost. Do you miss German bread? No. Actually, I'm not a big fan of German food, even though I am, of course, German. And yeah, I don't eat meat. I don't like bread a lot. Like, I like bread rolls, but I don't eat them a lot because I studied nutrition and they're not really the best thing you can eat. So I don't really care for the food in Germany too much, except for the meat alternatives, because I'm vegan and I've been for a long, long time. And in Japan, there are not a lot of options at the supermarket, like barely any. And I miss just having a whole shelf dedicated to vegan products in the supermarket at home and just be able to say, today I want this flavor of soy yogurt, and not just like here. They have one brand of soy yogurt and only one flavor, which is plain, and that's all. And I guess I'm happy they have at least something, but that's what I miss. How are the people there? When I first arrived here, they were all really nice. Also on the streets, like a lot of people said, sumimasen, if they like crossed my field of vision when I was on the store and they went between me and the shelf. But I don't know why. Maybe I seemed different, but now no one does it anymore. Maybe they just know me as the foreign girl now where I live and they just don't make an effort anymore. I don't know. Yeah, to be honest, I get a bit annoyed at people here sometimes because I thought Japanese people don't have time. I mean, it's a very general statement. I guess in Tokyo it's a bit more fast-paced maybe. But here the walkways are very narrow and sometimes they even have like side rails, I guess you could call it. So you can't go on the street or like change streets for some time. A lot of people walk so slowly, I guess. That's also because I have longer legs and I'm taller, so maybe I can go faster, like in my normal pace. But it's so annoying. and sometimes I just get very angry inside and I will just walk on the street even before I encounter any problems because I just don't want to be late for school or walk in snail's pace. Also, teachers in my school changed compared to what I said in my earlier videos. So I also saw the not so great side of how people get treated here. I will make also another video about my school experience and everything that follows, because I don't know yet what will come. Yeah, sorry for being that wishy-washy, but we will talk about it a later time. Do you talk a lot with natives there? Barely. I wanted to, but since I don't have a lot of time outside of school and we don't really talk to the teachers because it's more like frontal class, so they will talk a lot and we will just answer in very short phrases or like word groups kind of. I talk to the cashier. I always speak Japanese when I searching something at the store or have a question. I try my best to get across what I want. Sometimes I feel a bit awkward, but that's okay, I guess. I mean, it's a learning experience, but I expected to speak a bit more and maybe it will come later, I hope at least. How's the transportation compared to Germany as well? I like the transportation, but even though people always say the trains in Japan are never delayed, it's not true. There were a couple of incidents where the train was delayed. I guess it's not as frequent as in Germany. I mean, the Deutsche Bahn is known for being late and it's a running joke, like I feel like everywhere, not even just in Germany. So I guess I can't complain, but you still have to be careful and plan in more time, especially when you want to go to school and be on time. Other than that, it's very crowded. Usually I try to take the Futsu Denja, so the normal train, the very slow train, because it's not crowded as much, at least when I go to school. On the weekend, I took the fast train and it was so bad. It was my first experience when I got pushed into the train and pushed further and people were just like, ugh, let me go in there. And I was just like, man, just wait for the next train. I don't think that's how people in Germany would be. At least I haven't experienced it as much. I feel like sometimes people take a little bit more care about other people in Germany, like when it comes to public transport. Sunmi00 asked, how's the price compared to German and Japanese restaurants? Is the Japanese food palatable? It depends where you are. I mean, there are a lot of chain restaurants that are quite cheap. For example, at Moss Burger, you can get a burger for, I think, 550 yen. And I feel like it's okay, not so cheap, but when we went to Kamakura, for example, the restaurants were mostly around 2,000 yen for a main dish. It's a bit pricey maybe for Asia. If I would order the same thing we had in a German restaurant, I think I would pay more like 17, 18 euros compared to like around 12 euros here. So it's a bit cheaper, but again, it depends on where you are. If you're in the touristy area, of course you will pay more. And I guess vegan restaurants are also more expensive than normal restaurants. So yeah, I guess you have to see for yourself, but it's a bit cheaper than in Germany. Test user 8173 asks, I always heard Japanese people are workaholic. Do you see that? Is it true that they work a lot and not having family and kids? For the first question, at least for my teachers, I would say they are probably workaholics, at least some of them, because I wrote a message on Saturday and I got a message back from my sensei, I think like 2 hours later on a Saturday, and I didn't expect to get any answer for the whole weekend and I felt bad for bothering her and her having to respond to me. And then another teacher wrote something in our class chat on Sunday, so I guess they also work on the weekend, and when we have a test I will get the grade in the evening via Google Chat. Usually it's like around 7 in the evening or sometimes 8, and once I also had a question for, I don't know, something I didn't want to forget it, so I messaged my sensei at like 10:30 and she answered. And I was like, well, why do you answer at 10:30? But then again, a lot of our teachers, at least from what I heard, they have children and a lot of them also wear like wedding rings. But then again, I only have like female presenting teachers, so I don't know how it is for the male presenting crowd. And I guess it also depends where you will look. And then I also got a lot of questions about making friends in Japan. Sunmi00 asked, is it difficult for foreigners to make friends? Do you have any advice on what to be careful about when making Japanese friends? Friends in general, it's not that hard if you have somewhere where you go to frequently. Like for example, I go to language school frequently, so I have a lot of people that are kind of around my age. A lot of them are younger, but there are some my age and some even older. I'm 27, by the way. And since you frequent the same place a lot, and because of the forced proximity, you will develop friendships more easily. But then when it comes to Japanese people, I haven't made any Japanese friends. I haven't really talked to Japanese people like in private or like in a private setting, except for one of my roommates, share house people. And she really wants to study English. So she was like, oh, nice that you're here. I'm so happy. And there was also another German guy living here before me, and we just switched basically. And she was really good friends with him. So I feel like she hoped to be friends with me as well. But then I don't have a lot of time, so I felt really sorry. And she will leave in January, I believe, because she will be 3 months abroad to study English. But then again, since I elongated my stay until the end of June, I hope we have more time to maybe get a bit closer when she comes back. Other than that, I don't know, to be honest. Our teacher said we have to be careful when we go on dating websites, because there are some people that don't have your best interest in mind, and they want the trophy girlfriend to show off to their friends, to be like, hey, this is my foreign girlfriend, I'm cool, right? So I guess you have to be mindful about that, but I have not been in the position yet. I hope I have more time in the future to actually make some Japanese friends, and then I will, of course, also talk more about my experience with that. Soshi Sonsen asked, hello, I'm planning to go to study in Japan, and I'm a pretty socially anxious person, so I was wondering how easy it is to make both international and Japanese friends. How has your experience been with this, and do you have any tips or recommendations to meet people and make new friends? So I answered a lot of things already, but I feel like making international friends is of course a lot easier because of language school. I also have made really good friends, I would say, at least 1 or 2. People are really nice here, at least the people I met, and I feel like they're nicer than people in Germany, which is great. I mean, for the experience here, it's great. For living in Germany, not so great. But yeah, I guess I can't do anything about that. I feel like, again, because of the forced proximity, it's easy to make friends in school. I feel like outside of school, not so much. I met some people from Instagram, which I was very happy about, and I hope I will meet them more frequently in the future and make also some friends from Instagram. I'm also kind of socially anxious, like I've been more socially anxious in the past. I kind of overcame it a lot in the last 1 or 2 years, so it's not as bad anymore, but I feel like the best thing you can do is just try to be yourself and see who bites the bait and go with the flow. I mean, it's easy to say because I worried quite a lot before I came here, but it was actually not as hard as I expected, and I made friends the first day I entered school, so yeah, I guess don't worry too much, it will be fine. Then the topic of language school. First we have school and work, and I10OZ ask, how hard is it to get a job in Japan? So I don't know how hard it is to get a job in Japan because I took my job from Germany with me. Some language schools offer part-time job support, so they will have some openings in the school on the bulletin board and you can apply through them, and the companies of course want international people because they put their application form in the school and they know there are a lot of international people. I heard from Emily in Japan, for example, in her videos that it's quite hard to find a job just like that, like if you do it on your own over LinkedIn and stuff, and I will link it also below. Yeah, but I can't say a lot about that. I just know quite a lot of people in my class have jobs, so they were all able to find jobs, and some people are quite bad at speaking Japanese, so I guess it's easy if you have the right connections. And then Catherine J4077 asked, I plan to study in Japan next year and want your opinion about studying the language and working part-time. Is medium intensity overwhelming? I also work 28 hours here in Japan and I thought it would be fine. It's actually not. At least for me and my abilities and my language school, it's very overwhelming, and the school is very demanding and they put a lot of pressure on us to perform well and to adhere to what they want from us. So I feel like it also depends on your job, because I have one that's more like mentally demanding and school is also mentally demanding, but I don't have anything that's physically demanding. It's a bit much for the brain, and it's also hard to concentrate if I already worked 5 hours and then I have 3.5 hours of language school and still homework and stuff. It's all very heavy on the brain. But if you would have, for example, a more physically demanding job, like unpicking things, putting them in the shelves in a store, I guess it might be a bit easier to balance when it comes to like physical and mentally exhausting yourself. But I think 12-15 hours might be okay, at least for my school. And if you still want to have your weekend kind of free, or like at least one day to do stuff with your friends, I guess it would work. But I would not recommend the 28 hours at all, because if you think about it, you have 20 hours of school, and if you have 28 hours of work, that's already 48 hours. And then you have to commute to school, you have to do your homework, you have to study. So I easily have 60-hour weeks, and it's hard. Don't do the 28 hours, please. I mean, you can work more, I think up to 40 hours in the semester break. So I guess if you want to work more hours, that's an opportunity, but also plan enough time to rest during the semester break, because you will need the rest. Trust me. Then we get onto the topic of progress in my skills. Esther Volkening 3568 asks, how would you describe the difference in progress you made since coming to Japan compared to before? That's a bit hard to answer, I guess, because I studied, I think, half of N3 already when I was at home, and I got placed into a class that just started with N3. So a lot of things I study when it comes to grammar, and especially kanji, are some things that I already studied. And I'm happy about the grammar revision, because that's something I was still not so sure about. And I guess I'm now more secure in some grammar points that I know. But when it comes to kanji, I didn't learn any new kanji, and it felt a bit like meh, because I mean, it's good to review kanji, but this week we will get a new kanji book, actually the kanji 2200, so I hope we will learn some new kanji this week, and I hope not too many at once. I mean, I want to learn new kanji, but not 20 a week, but we will see. And when it comes to reading, I feel like I now am better at reading JLBT texts, but not real texts, I guess. I can answer JLBT reading questions, however much this is worth. I'm way better at listening though, because of course I hear the teachers talking for 3.5 hours a day. So at first I struggled a lot with understanding what they even said, and now I understand almost everything. Sometimes some things they say are still unclear and a bit like, huh, what do you want me to do right now? Sorry. But I mean, a lot of people are the same in my class. Speaking, I wouldn't say it improved. I kind of fear speaking now a bit more when it comes to at least speaking in school than I did before. When it comes to speaking outside of school, I of course improved when it comes to ordering food, ordering coffee, asking store employees, and the little tiny interactions I got a bit better in. But when someone talks to me in Japanese and I'm not prepared, I just freeze and I'm just like, and there's nothing coming out. Not that great. My vocabulary has increased quite a bit because they force a lot of vocabulary down our throat, and I think we already studied 800 new vocab words since I started school 7 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago, so that's a lot. But I mean, I understand some things more now when it comes to vocabulary, and I also understand the things they say in the train better and stuff. But most things that improved are not because of school, but because I live here and I try to put myself into uncomfortable situations myself. I'm really interested to know about your expectations versus reality. How much are you able to communicate in Japan with all the time you spend studying? I think I almost answered the question. I knew before I wouldn't be able to communicate as well because I'm very slow at communicating, and I mean, I can talk to my italki teacher for 40 minutes, but I will need time to think about things I want to say and how I want to say it. And in everyday life, I don't have the time to think a lot, and people want to know my answer now and not in 2 minutes. I kind of knew it before, but it still hurts a bit. Polyglot and Peak Turns ask, has speaking Japanese gotten easier now that you're in Japan? How do Japanese people react? I think it has gotten easier when I interact with cashiers, at least. Some people josued me already, so they're like, oh, Nihongo josu desu ne. But I think it was only like 3-4 times, and the people that said it, I feel like they really meant it, because I was like, yeah. Then I was explaining like, I'm in language school, I'm still studying, and when we were at the cafe in Kamakura, one of the, I think it's the owner probably, she was like, oh, but you understood everything I'm saying, so that's so great. And she really reacted in a good way, and she also remembered me when I came back, even though it's in a very touristy area. A week later she was like, oh, you're back, I'm so happy. And I'm like, oh, thank you. So there are a few people that reacted nicely. I feel like when I go to Starbucks and I stand in line and the people see me, they're like, oh my god, I have to speak English now. And then I already see them like putting away the tray for the money to reveal the English menu, and I'm just like, daijoubu, and I'm like ordering in Japanese, and you just see their face lighting up and being like, oh my god, I'm so relieved. And when I was very happy the first time I got my order correctly without them having to ask me, oh, do you want it in store? Do you want it hot? I was so happy. I smiled a lot and the girl complimented my temples. So there are some nice people that react nicely, but not as many as I expected, to be honest. And then school in general. Kora-chan JP asked, how long are your classes in a day and do you have different subjects in school? The different subjects I kind of talked about in the last video, which I will link at the top. My classes are 3.5 hours a day. We have 45 minutes, 10-minute break, 45 minutes, 10-minute break, and then again, like, so 4 45-minute school hours, I guess, and always 10-minute breaks in between, which is enough time to run to the nearest konbini and grab an onigiri or go to the toilet. Yeah, we basically have dictation practice. Then usually we would have kanji. We currently have a pause on studying kanji because of the JLBT people wrote last weekend. Then we would usually do our Chukyu Hei Iku book, so the medium N3 intensity study book where we study the vocabulary and the grammar. Before that, we would do shadowing from our short story book, a double page, and read 3 to 4 short stories and discuss them a little bit. And then we would either do grammar study in the try book, reading JLBT study in the drill and drill book, or listening JLBT study in also the drill book. But yeah, if you want to see more, again, check out the video at the top. Kudoshi QB6EU asks, how much different is your daily study schedule in Japan compared to the previous one in your country? Now I spend a lot more time studying. I already tried to ramp up my amount of studying before I came here to, I think, 3 to 4 hours a day. Now it's more like 6 hours sometimes, so it's a bit much. I can't really study the way I would like to because I like also to study through reading, but I don't have time to read almost anything except for on the weekend. I try to at least read for half an hour on Sunday, but more than that, not possible. I don't really have time for immersion so much, which is also sad. So I now do more like rote memorization, it's called, I think. So just like studying stuff from tables and trying to remember them for at least for the test and then forgetting them. So not the best study method and schedule. Rest is really important. So what do you do to relax and enjoy your daily life in Japan? I hang out with friends. I try to leave the city on the weekend or to at least go to a different part in the city to de-stress and not think about school or work, and it usually works. Also, sometimes in the evening I will watch an anime. For example, I currently watch Beastars again because there's a new season and I want to remind myself of what happened before. And then Sunmi00 asks, when did you start learning Japanese? I originally started in 2013, 2012 in my summer break after the 10th grade, I think. And I tried to teach something to myself with some YouTube videos, but I quit soon after because I worked also a part-time job during my 11th and 12th grade to save up for my year abroad in Australia and New Zealand. And then I continued in 2019 and I studied in my university for half a year. Then since 2020, I've been studying it all by myself. I mean, until now, of course. I had my ups and downs. I had my break times for multiple months, but I came a long way, I would say. Is there a difference from learning Japanese by yourself and learning Japanese in language school? As I explained before, yes, definitely. I like more immersive methods and not just rote memorization, but again, there's just no time and I feel like we just learn for the test, and for the JLBT, they try to push us as soon as possible through the JLBT, and then it's like, yep, I guess you're good now, and we still are not good at speaking or anything, and people will forget a lot of things. And when I see how the level of Japanese of my classmates is, they just started studying Japanese half a year ago from 0, and now they are starting N3, and I feel like it's way too much they had to study up until now, and you see it in some of their abilities when it comes to writing texts and stuff. Test user 8173, how is student life there compared to Germany? Do you have more pressure to study? Yes, more pressure to study, definitely. I feel like the teachers are a bit more strict and they want everyone to put in their effort. I feel like in at least my school in Germany, it was more like, if you don't put in the effort, I don't really care. Teachers tried to push you a bit, but if they realized, okay, you just don't want to, they kind of gave up at some point. But here it's more like they expect it from everyone, even though they clearly show they don't want to do anything. And they will get very angry about it to the whole class, which I will talk more about later. I mean, later in another video, when a lot of things have been decided that are currently open and in discussion. But yeah, it's not as fun as I expected. Next topic, ADHD in language school. Raven Makora said, you mentioned ADHD. I have it really bad. How do you deal with it while sticking to your homework and studying? You can't use the same medication like you can in the US, so I'm wondering what other options there is to help. I got myself a little homework book. It's this one. I write all of our homework inside, and as you can see, we have a lot of homework sometimes. And if I wouldn't do it, I would forget everything, because they will just give us like 4 different homeworks for 4 different days. They will be like, today's homework for tomorrow is this, then for next week it's this, for Thursday you have to do this, and you're just like, what? Then again, they use a lot of different books in our school, and I needed, I think up until last week, to just comprehend when to do what, like when to prepare what material to be prepared for class. It was not great for my brain. I felt very overwhelmed, and I feel like a lot of other people felt overwhelmed by it as well, because they only had 2 books up until now, so Minano Nihongo and Kanji Look and Learn, but now we have 5 different books, and it's just too much. I did a Notion overview to keep track of what I did in class, like what chapter we had, what chapter I made my notes for, what chapter I studied. I guess this helped a bit, but I'm still very overwhelmed every time I sit down to study, and I'm like, okay, what do I even have to do now? I don't know. They will leave the door open in our room while teaching. In the comments of one of my last videos, another person said in their school they didn't leave the doors open, but in our school it's very noisy a lot of times, and when we have to read text for the JLBT N3 and we don't even understand half of what's written, it's very hard. I'm just now at the point where I whip out my earplugs, I put in my earplugs, and I just try to cover my ears with my hands on top, and then it's kind of okay, but still I'm struggling a lot when it comes to having ADHD and being there, because there are also a lot of people who will talk in the back row, and it's hard to hear them talk in kind of Japanese, kind of English, and then hear the teacher talk in Japanese. And when it comes to the medication, I will try to link a website down below if I still find it, where they say what medication you can bring and what you have to fill out. I talked about it more in my video where I applied to Japanese language school, what I did with my medication. I mean, I decided not to bring it, but I showed you the form I would have to fill out if I wanted to bring it. Long-term plans. Daily Dale asked, what's your goal after 6 months in the language school? Do you have any long-term plans to stay there in Japan? So my goal after 6 months in language school was actually to be finished with N3 level, but I guess it's not happening, because I thought, okay, if I'm finished with N3, I mean, I don't necessarily need the certificate, but just being at the level where I could take it, then I feel like it would be a lot easier to read books, and I really want to read books. There are a lot of books I bought, and I will show them to you one day when I'm back in Germany, I guess, because I don't know how much I will still buy. I want to read them all, and I want to read in Japanese a lot, but I guess, again, not happening, because we don't study the way I would need to study to get to the level, I guess, that I need for being able to read more books in Japanese. And if I have any long-term plans to stay in Japan, not for now, because of my job. I have to return in July, because there's an agreement between Germany and Japan. Like, I am allowed to work 182 days in Japan for Germany, but if I stay 1 day longer, I will also have to pay taxes in Japan and in Germany, and I don't want to pay in Japan and Germany. Right now I just pay taxes in Germany, so I guess that's my limitation. I would maybe like to stay here longer, because I feel like, even though I said different things for language school, in general, living in Japan is very good for my ADHD, and I will make another video about it. I'm sorry, but this video will just be too long if I talk about everything in detail. I feel like still, even though I had a bad experience with school, I feel very at home here, and my parents always joke that I must have been Japanese in my previous life, because I feel so drawn since I was a kid to be here. But we will see what will happen in the future. But yeah, my plans are at the moment to return to Germany in July. So we will see. Studying Japanese in general, there are also some questions I got. Jay Gastites ask, what's your long-term goal for studying Japanese? Reading a lot. I would like to also understand Japanese dramas and anime, and just be able to use Japanese as I use English, like watch YouTube videos, listen to podcasts, just have another pair of eyes I can look at the world through. So, because I feel like the German perspective of life is different to the, like, US perspective of life or the Canadian perspective of life. And of course, the Japanese perspective of life is also different. So I want to also experience this more in detail to have a broader life experience, I guess you could say. Be even more open-minded than I already try to be. Mrs. Leah Lloyd asked, how do you get yourself out of a study slump? I made a video on how I stay motivated to study Japanese, so I will link it at the top. But to make it short, know your why. Try to find methods that are fun for you, not necessarily the most well-known methods or that everyone uses. Like if you don't like Anki, don't use Anki. Try to find a more immersive method like reading to encounter a lot of the same vocabulary again and again. And Kuroshi QB6AU asked, if you have a time machine, what advice would you give to your younger self about learning Japanese? It's not about the JLPT. Don't stress yourself too much. Don't listen to people who claim I reached the JLPT N1 in 12 months or something. I learned now from being in language school, you can pass the JLPT because I passed the practice tests twice in N3, even though I don't really understand a lot of N3 material. And this doesn't mean you're fluent in Japanese or you are good at Japanese. So don't stress, take your time, enjoy the beginner stage, enjoy the intermediate stage, enjoy your intermediate plateau, even though I haven't encountered it. And I think I will never encounter it because if I hit a plateau, I will just look for different immersion resources or like different topics to immerse myself in to learn more things again there. Just try a lot of different methods. Don't be afraid to waste time because it's not a race to study Japanese. In the end, at least for me, it's something I enjoy. I want to enjoy long term. I don't enjoy it while being in language school to study Japanese, and it showed me again. It's so important to do things you want to do and you have fun doing. So I guess that's a good end to the video. I hope it will not turn out too long because right now it's 56 minutes that I've been recording. But thank you all for your very interesting questions and for wanting to know so much. And yeah, there will be a lot more videos coming about things I talked about, like my real language school experience, ADHD in Japan, stuff like that. So stay tuned if you don't want to miss them. Make sure to subscribe and also give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. And I will link you my last Japanese vlog here, which is a day in Japanese language school. And you can see what it would be like to go to language school and also work for a day. And I will see you in my next video very soon. Bye bye!